So, this is the second video on the Chris's Commentary YouTube channel. And for this video, no introduction, just going to go right into it. And want to comment on this one on my second favorite WrestleMania match of all time, which was Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon, WrestleMania 10, Madison Square Garden. I tweeted something about this a few weeks ago. I'll get into that later. But if you saw my first video, you know I kind of like to go into background and just touch on little nuanced things, obscure things, just things that come to my memory. And when I think about this match in particular, it kind of just felt like there wasn't that much hype. There wasn't that much anticipation for this match, despite it being the first ever televised ladder match, and I think second ladder match in history, if I have my history correct. But it just felt like I remember Vince McMahon and King on commentary. Usually during this time in the early part of shows, they tease or plug a big match coming on later in the night. They'd say, coming on later tonight, you have the steel cage match or the Intercontinental title match. And if my memory is correct, it just felt like there was no really teasing or referencing of it at all throughout the broadcast. It kind of just felt like it just came on out of nowhere, in a sense. I guess more of the marketing, more of the publicity went to the two WWF Championship matches between Bret, Yoko, and Lex, and the brother and brother match between Bret and Owen. And I think about it too. I think in prior WrestleManias, the Intercontinental title match, there was more hype, more anticipation for those two. I think about Bret Hart versus Roddy Piper, WrestleMania 8. I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% positive on this, but I think Macho Man, Ricky Steamboat, WrestleMania 3, that was highly anticipated. And it just felt, this one, it kind of just came out of nowhere on the show. It was the second to last match on the card, so it was a big spot. But the fact that I processed it to not to have little fanfare, and it went on to be the rousing success it did, and to go on and steal the show like it did. Because of that, I hold it, I guess, in a higher esteem. I hold it in a unique, special regard. And that's just some of the background my memory goes to with this match. And I guess storyline wise, I didn't remember much. I remember both guys claimed to be the Intercontinental Champion, and as a result, they had two belts suspended above the ring instead of one, which I guess was unique. But again, this was like the first ladder match in history. I don't think people really knew what to expect, and that was a big thing with it too, as I'll go into detail later. Just the fact that this was the first ever ladder match, something no one had seen before, first ever televised ladder match. And so I'll get into that a little later. But I guess another thing that stands out, I remember both guys' entrances vividly. I went into detail with that with Hulk and Rock last week, but I just remember Razor came out and they had the they had the ladder in the alleyway, and both guys, Razor and Shawn, played into their part great with this. But Razor, when he approached the ladder, decided to go under it and saunter under it in his smooth machismo way. And then when Shawn came out, he was came off as the cocky, intelligent heel, like gets to the ladder, does like a little finger wag and steps around it, kind of taking the easy way out. And I thought it was just both guys playing into their role great, just a little metaphorical interaction. And Razor being the courageous babyface, throwing caution to the wind, stepping under the ladder, and then Shawn, like I said, the weasel heel, always looking to take the easy way out, steps around the ladder, and Jerry the King and Vince making reference to this. I just thought it was a great little touch to add to the match before it started, and that's something I remember vividly. And then the match starts, and like I said, this is the first ever televised ladder match, and just I know me, I don't think most people knew what to expect. And I think the thing that was big, that was really noticeable, was how they used the ladder as a weapon, used it as a prop. And I think for this time, 1994, it was very barbaric, the things they were doing. At least in WWF, it was pretty violent. And sometimes the more painful things look, obviously, the more entertained people are going to be. And the way they used the ladder, it was just so innovative, so pioneering in a sense. And I just remember some of the ways they used it. I remember there was this one instance where Razor, he went outside, went to get the ladder, put it in the ring through the bottom rope, and Shawn got this like running start and like baseball slide kick the ladder into his stomach. And I'm just like, oh my God, like that's gotta hurt. Like ladder right into Razor's stomach. And I remember that very vividly. I remember Razor just rammed the ladder into Shawn's stomach. There was one instance where Razor was bent over with his back to Shawn, and Shawn just throws like the full ladder on his hunched over back, and it's like, wow, like this stuff it's gotta hurt. The way they were using it. I remember Razor, they were on the outside, and Razor, the ladder was leaned up against the ring, and Razor like slingshotted Shawn into the ladder, and Shawn a little acting here, but like pushed the ladder, made it fall back on him. That was a little acting, but just stuff like that. Just remember so vividly. I remember there's another sequence. Razor was lying on his back on the mat, and Shawn got on the top rope and like clutched the ladder to his chest and just fell down on Razor with his body weight. And it was just, you're saying to yourself, at least I'm saying, this stuff is crazy. This is, we've never seen this before. And I think the crowd as a result was just enthralled in it, enamored with it, and so engaged. And another part was one of the most iconic images in WrestleMania history. Shawn gives Razor the cross body splash off the ladder, and that went on to be shown in WrestleMania montages for years and years to come. Like I said, one of the most iconic images in WrestleMania history. And then there was a humorous part I referenced a few weeks ago. I just always love this part. A lot of violence, but there's this humorous part I love to reference. One part in the match where Shawn is going up to get the belt, and Razor's trying to like grab him off the ladder, and he ends up pulling his pants down. And Shawn just is totally undeterred, like doesn't even pay any mind to that. His Razor pulls his pants down. He's full moon in the Madison Square Garden crowd, and Shawn, just undeterred, just acts like as if like it's all normal, and full moon in the crowd kicks Razor off and kicks Razor to the mat. His back is on the mat now, and at this point he's just totally, he has the time, he can adjust himself, pick his pants back up, but no, he decides, still full mooning the crowd, I'm gonna give Razor an elbow drop, which he does, and then he finally pulls his pants back up, but just one of the one of the more just memorable parts for me. One of the more comedic sequences in all the years I've been watching wrestling. I don't hear many people talk about that, reference it that much, but it's just something I always love to bring up. But again, the ladder, just such a big part of the match, and it was a great way it concluded too. Shawn was going up for ascending the ladder, trying to get the belts. Razor gives like a shoulder block, gets a running start, gives a shoulder block into the ladder, and knocks the ladder over, and Shawn ends up landing between his legs on the top rope, and then his leg gets caught in the ropes, and Razor goes to grab the ladder, and Shawn's hanging upside down, grabs the ladder, but Shawn has no leverage, and they're in a little bit of a tug of war, and Razor's able to grab it, set the ladder up, and meanwhile Shawn's just fighting in the ropes, trying to entangle himself as Razor ascends the ladder. And then Shawn unhooks his legs, but then gets his arm caught. And it's just this race to see if Shawn can untangle himself and get to the ladder and knock Razor off as Razor's ascending and going to get the belts. And it's kind of simultaneous as Razor grabs both belts, falls off the ladder as Shawn just entangles and dives at the ladder. And match concludes, and just similar to Rock and Hulk last week, it just was a lot of back and forth and a lot of oohing and eyeing from the crowd. It was different from, obviously a lot different from Rock and Hulk. There wasn't that, just electricity pre-match and the crowd hanging on every move, but it was very special and unique in its own right. And Razor ascends the ladder, extends both arms, holding out the belts, and that was the capper on a match that to me was just so innovative. Like I said, these guys they came off as pioneers in a sense, and it was like they put the ladder match on the map. And it's just one of my favorite matches of all time, and one I hold in such a high regard. And again, like Rock and Hulk, just something I always wanted to comment on. So that's video number 2 in the books. And again, would love to hear any feedback if you're interested, if you have memories of this match, if any of this connects with you or relates to you. And if not, would love to hear feedback on that as well. But that's video number 2 in the books. And if you watched, appreciate it, and take care.